To the College Football Preview Show presented by Yolked. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by the most patient man in America, Ryan Barry. He puts up with my bullshit every week. Usually I'm late because me, Amaral, and Mukala go late with the high school show, and poor Ryan is patiently waiting for me to come on. So, Ryan, I want to publicly apologize to you for being super late tonight. Usually we're on by now, but we had a long show on the high school side of things, so I want to apologize for being late.
It's okay, because hearing someone calling me patient never happens. So I will. My wife will. I got to tell
She
her
will
you said
appreciate
that.
it.
Yeah,
for sure.
because usually I don't always hear
Because
that.
she's
So
patient with you.
right. So I will take that. So all good. Yeah.
By the way, we were just talking before we went live, and it's hard to believe it's already week 10 in the college season. I know every week, every show, either me, Stone, or somebody else will go, I can't believe it's already, but it's hard to believe that it's week 10, man. I mean, we're first weekend in November. We've already had 10 weeks. By the end of this weekend, we will have already had 10 weeks of college football action. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting season in New England. That's for sure. To
It's
put it
been an
lightly.
interesting season, and I'm glad you prefaced it that way. I think it's been a disappointing season.
Yeah.
Outside of Harvard, URI, for the most part, has been what we thought they would be. UConn has been what we thought they would be, and / a little disappointing. But really, when you look at the rest of the region, I don't necessarily judge the region by the CAA or even the Ivy League. Boston College is now entering potentially historically bad territory. We haven't seen a season like this potentially since the 70s. Holy Cross, after being dominant for so many years, they've been a major disappointment. UMass, I think we all had higher expectations for them. Obviously, that hasn't happened. It has. It's been, the season's flown by,
Yeah.
but it's been disappointing because I thought this was a season where we could potentially have at least two, probably two bowl teams, maybe 2 or 3 playoff teams. We still may get that, but to your point, it's been a disappointment. Now, before we get started here, I do want to let you know that we are brought to you by Yolked. If you're looking for a safe and effective protein product to incorporate into your workouts, Yolked is that product at only 47 calories per pack. It is a delicious way to acquire protein. It's all natural, tastes like birthday cake. Visit Yolked.com today for more information and learn more about this great product. All right, let's start with Boston College. Obviously, look, it's the same old song and dance now. Eagles dropped to 1-8. They give up over 500 yards of offense, over 300 yards rushing. Sure, when you look at the score, they were more competitive, but this is a football team that has now entered a part of the schedule where they're just playing out the string. Let's be honest here. Yes, you want to win games. Yes, you want some positives, but the injuries continue to pile up. Grayson James is banged up. They have multiple injuries on the defensive side of the ball. They're playing a lot of young guys, which could potentially bode well for the future. But let's be realistic here. You got the Holy War on Saturday. Notre Dame comes to town. Me and Stone will double cover that one. But realistically speaking, now you just hope it doesn't become a game of attrition here as you wind down what is, as I mentioned earlier, fast becoming a historically bad season.
Yeah, it's really hard to extract like positives from the season, especially considering all the injuries and what you had last season. And it's like, this is a moral victory, right? We always joke the show of moral victories, against a Louisville
by
team.
The way, I gave. By the way, not to cut you off, Ryan, they're 1-7, not 1-8. So who's the a-hole in the house? This guy.
Right. And I'm sure a BC fan's like, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was called the fat bitch by a BC fan a couple of weeks ago. So that guy's probably watching right now. I hate that fat bitch.
Right. He feels vindicated because you got
the Eagles fly.
Right. And I really don't know what to. I know that there's a lot of injuries and like, I always wonder now with the transfer portal in being so prevalent, you have guys that, how many injuries are injuries and how many guys could have come back that aren't going to come back anymore. And how many guys
you're saying the quiet part out loud, my friend.
Yeah. And how many guys are playing that it might feel like it's boding well for next season. Like, oh, look at what this kid's doing. He's a redshirt sophomore. He looks okay, but then he's really just putting tape together so he can get ready to put his name. So it just sucks how much uncertainty there is now amongst players. Whereas before you're like, oof, this is a rough season. We'll lose some guys, but hopefully we'll come back and we'll recruit and we'll build. But this is a season where it's like, if you're a recruit, what are you hanging your hat on? Like, what does Bill O'Brien say to a kid who's just, really, like, listen, this was just a bad year. I get it. But how do you convince them when it's really just gone off the rails in a way doesn't feel like a typical, like, oof, it just kind of went sideways.
Yeah, it went sideways. And look, let's not kid ourselves. Even if Bill O'Brien is back next year, and the full expectation is that he will be. I mean, I don't see him walking away, and I certainly don't see them making a change. And I think it would be foolish on their parts if they tried to make a change. I think he's back. But if he's back, and you know me, man, I'm a coach. I'll never be a guy on any of our platforms that advocates for changes because I know how much time coaches put into their profession, how much their families put into it, how hard it is to uproot your family and move them somewhere else. It's a nomadic profession to begin with. So I don't want to be that guy that's pushing for coaching change. But when you have a season this bad, it's inevitable. There's going to be changes on the staff. But as I said the other night on the New England Football Show, the talent needs to be upgraded. It's that simple. Now, O'Brien talked about this last week, saying that the school is making more of a commitment. That's great to see that the school is making more of a financial commitment, and he's happy about that. But where is that money going? A lot of that money should go towards talent acquisition and NIL. We'll see if it is or it isn't. The bottom line is you've got to upgrade the roster at several different positions. They're going to need to be very active in the portal. Obviously, staff changes are coming. A lot is going to change. You hope to build some momentum going into next season, but it is really hard to build momentum in this day and age. You know that, as you mentioned, with the portal. Guys are coming and going now. It's really hard to carry it over into the next season and build off of a strong finish. This is going to be more about getting through the season, convincing some of your younger players to stay and not enter the portal, and fortifying the roster and reimagining the staff. Bill O'Brien has a big offseason ahead of him, a lot of work to do. As he said a couple of weeks back, he's a fighter. He's not a quitter. He's not going to walk away from this thing. If he doesn't, though, a lot needs to change, and I think it will. And we'll preview this Notre Dame game here in a few minutes, but bottom line is when you look at their schedule, I think at this point, if you can be competitive this week, be competitive against SMU and Georgia Tech, and beat Syracuse, like you said, this is the show of the moral victory. That probably is a moral victory for this season for Boston College.
I also think BC is looking at it, and I know that there's fans who are pissed and they just want change, but there's too many jobs available right now on that it would just be foolish to also throw your name in the hat of and I'm not saying I mean they're not gonna a guy who's considering Penn State, LSU, is not considering BC, but just maybe the guy who's like I'm just thinking like a Bob Chesney right now. Bob Chesney is killing it at James Madison, unsurprisingly. He is a guy who maybe, if in a lighter year, if the BC job's open, maybe he considers it. But now it's like he's doing so well that I've heard his name thrown out there for big jobs. He's
a Pennsylvania guy. His name's been linked to Penn State, and I wouldn't sleep on that idea. Look, and I know people are going to say, well, you guys love Chesney, and Bob's been very good to us here at New England Football Journal. Right. And yes, to be honest with you, I do love Bob Chesney. I think he's a terrific coach, but above all else, he's a great person. He's a terrific human being. So for me, the way I look at it, yes, call me a Bob Chesney fan. Yes, I'm a member of the fan club. That being said, I agree with you, man. His name's going to be linked to a lot of these bigger jobs, but you bring up a tremendous point, Ryan. You don't want to throw your name in that hat this offseason. This is not the right cycle to be looking for a coach. There's too many good jobs out there where it's going to limit your candidate pool as a result.
Right. So I just think that you kind of just have to bite the bullet here and hope that he's just like, hey, this is something happened this year, and we've seen this happen with coaches before. But either way, it's okay to be pissed. A good friend of mine's a BC season ticket holder, and he's like, hey, I can't go to the SMU game in a couple weeks. Do you want the tickets for free? And I'm like, I don't really know if I want them, and I think there's a lot of people feeling the same way about what's the point in going the rest of the season?
Yeah, and we probably need you to cover a game. So I mean,
yes, yeah, and that, yeah, right, right.
That part of it too. I mean, you don't need to be there.
No,
no, I think you bring up a tremendous point. Like I said, I mean, again, this is not a cycle that you want to be looking for a coach. But then again, Brian Kelly is a Massachusetts native. He's from Chelsea. Do you bring him back? Does he adjust the Southern accent and have more of a Northeast accent this time? What would you do if one of the local programs hired him and he's at the basketball game rallying the masses and the alumni, and he's like, I parked my car over in that lot over there, and I made my way in to see you guys. I'm super excited about this opportunity.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's honestly probably been one of the best running jokes this week since he's been fired. Is all
Amazing.
Brian Kelly, like someone dubbing Tony's like Tony Soprano voice if he goes to Rutgers, it's just like perfect. Yeah.
I mean, what really gets me is I've always so he went to St. John's Prep. A lot of people I've spoken to that know him, that were there when he was there. I'm gonna keep those conversations to myself, but I can't stop watching. There's 2 clips of him I can't stop watching. One, I can't stop watching him at the basketball game with the Southern accent. That is just comedy gold. What a fraud.
Yeah.
And then I can't stop watching those stupid dancing videos with the recruits. They're fucking.
I was just going to say that one.
I almost swore. They're flipping fantastic. He's doing the whole.
Yeah, he's throwing the L's up like with the camera going around. Yeah, like I think it's
a stupid rap song in the background. They're cringy. They are so cringy.
It's one of those weird things where, like, when he talked at that basketball game, you were like, "This isn't going to work." Like, it was just one of those.
Right away. I don't know how the hell he won 34 games there.
Yeah, not. I know that we're talking it, but it's Massachusetts adjacent.
Fine. Whatever. It's college football.
Yeah. So
no. And it's like. And I haven't even won all my games yet. And me and my family, I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
The only thing that would have been worse is if he went out there and did like a Cajun accent.
Right.
The only thing that would have been worse if he was out there, me and my family, we are here to win games and have crawfish. Then it would have been like,
trying to sound like Coach O.
Get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
Somebody should have given him the vaudeville hook, and they didn't. And it's too bad. How frustrating is it right now to be a UConn football fan? You beat Boston College, huge program win, 2-1 against them in the last 3 meetings. You have all this momentum. Joe Fagnano has a career day. Then you go down to Rice. You're thinking you're going to boil Rice. You don't. And they lose. And I don't. And Jim Mora was very, as you can, during the week in his press conference yesterday, he needless to say, he was very moody and short-tempered and short with his answers. I don't blame the guy, man. That's a bad loss. It's inexcusable to me. You can't beat Boston College and then go on the road and lose to Rice. Sorry. And if there's any Rice fans out there watching the show, I don't care. You're Rice, okay? UConn is a better program right now. They should go on the road and win that game. The fact that they didn't, all it means is that Rice, I guess, is a better program.
Well, I think you and I had kind of alluded to maybe it being a trap game, but I think that maybe because we've been drinking so much of the Kool-Aid, we were like, but no, they'll handle it. And I think that I think because I mean we both picked UConn, and I was like, I think it'll be closer than it says, and just you can't let up 300 rushing yards, especially against a team and a guy that's only had a couple good games this season against bad teams.
I can see you again, by the way. For a minute, there was Ryan Barry after dark. So.
Okay. I want to avoid that. I'll sit up close.
There we go.
No one needs to see that. But just, I don't know. And I think you hit on the head. It's one of those things where you can say, yes, like we're having a great season. It's been a lot of fun. And our 3 losses are all in overtime. But at the same time, like you just got to win those games because.
But 2 of those losses are to Delaware and Rice, right? If you're a UConn fan, it sucks, but you can stomach losing to Syracuse, even though they should have won that game. They blew that game, but losing to Delaware and Rice. And again, I'm not talking down about those programs. It's not about them. It's about UConn. You should win those games, and the fact that they didn't is pretty frustrating.
Right, and if you're a UConn fan, you basically have to be perfect anyway to be considered for a legitimate, like, I shouldn't say any bowl's not legitimate, but I'm talking a bigger, maybe I'm just talking a Gator Bowl-esque type thing where it has some name and it's not just a Cheez-It Bowl or something, so it's like,
Cheez-It Bowl, right?
you
The
know, like one of
Pop-Tart
those,
Bowl.
yeah, the ReliaQuest, Meineke Karka, one of those non-type bowls, like something where it's like, oh, like the Alamo Bowl or the Gator Bowl,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they needed to be perfect, and they played their way out of that, I think, with these losses. But it's just,
I agree.
it sucks when those are their losses, like you said, because now you have to beat Air Force, you have to beat Duke, right? And it's like because you could have afforded those losses had you not lost to Rice and Delaware.
Right, because you assume they'll win this week. Nothing's a given, and UAB's playing much better under Alex Mortensen, the son of the late great Chris Mortensen. But I do think you win this week, you're bowl eligible. But I think you bring up a fascinating point. The goal going into this year should have been to build off of last year's 9-win season and Fenway Bowl win by going to an even higher profile bowl. And you had enough back, even though you were replacing a lot of key parts. And here's the reality. I think we took for granted just how much they had to replace from that defense last year, though. And you're seeing it. And they brought in a lot of good players. Don't get me wrong, guys that played well in the second half of that BC game. But they're missing a lot of guys that were big-time playmakers on that defense the last couple of years, and it's starting to show. But to your point, this year really had to be about, all right, how do we get to a higher profile bowl? How do we raise the profile of the program even further than we did last year? Because that's the key to getting into a conference. When you lose to Delaware, you lose to Rice, you're not doing yourself any favors, especially at a basketball school. Let's face it. Indiana's teetering now towards becoming a football school. North Carolina was teetering there for a while, probably still a hoop school, but they want to be good in football too. Kansas is putting a lot of money into football. These so-called basketball schools want to be good in football too because they see that the pie is bigger there. But the reality is UConn's always going to be a hoop school. And so you're already fighting that, which, again, and it's not whatever. It's not a football versus basketball thing. It's just UConn's a hoop school. So you're already fighting that. You need positive momentum year in and year out with this football program. You had that last year. You had it going into this year. I mean, shoot, you had it at the end of last week. And then you blow it against Rice. Again, a game you should win. Joe Fagnano, by the way, had another big game. So he's been terrific. He's my opinion, one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the country this year. UMass 38-13 loss to Central Michigan. Again, we are the show of positivity here, the show of moral victory. Moral victory for the Minutemen?
I mean, 3 points in the second half. So
the answer is no.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's hard. I mean, I probably had the first quarter of the game on, and then when they went down 21-7, I was like, okay, I know where this is going. And checking. There's a lot of other great games that were on, so I kind of checked in periodically before having to run out and about. But it's just 279 yards rushing allowed. I mean, and that's something they've been improved on, but there's no one who's consistently catching the ball. I mean, Hairston's throwing the ball 50 plus times a game. It's just, it's hard to look at the positives. There are some guys who are playing, their hearts out. Tyler Martin is stepping up, in the absence of Timmy Hinspeter, so I don't know. They played a football game and lost, and Central Michigan is what you're trying to be. So that's all I can say.
Are you looking forward to basketball season? I feel like a lot of UMass football fans are starting to move on here, even though MACtion's starting. They have a bye this week, but they start MACtion next week, next Tuesday night. They play at Akron on November 4th. So, I mean, MACtion is here now, and it's going to be our first taste of MACtion. Is that not enough to excite you? And by the way, this is a game they can win. This is the one game left on their schedule that could potentially, I don't want to say salvage your season, but at least give UMass fans something to be happy about.
It's hard because I think a lot of people were circling this Akron game as, I would love to do the numbers. If you took Akron away from our schedule since we've joined FBS, where we would be, because they seem to save us every time we need a freaking win. But, Akron's 3-6, but they're a little bit better than people thought.
I agree. I was going to say this is not Akron's won 3 games, and Joe Moorhead's a good coach.
The NIU game now is surprisingly starting to look like the game that could maybe win. You're going to be at home. It's on a Wednesday night. But Bowling Green's 3-5. So that's the thing is like the they're not playing juggernauts like we thought. Like when I had the NIU game and the Ohio game, I was like, oof, those are gonna be blowouts. But now the way that NIU is playing, there's a chance there. So, and there still is against Akron. I just think it's how healthy can they be? Because if they can get a couple guys back, I do think that they can compete with them. You know,
So
because
Akron beat Buffalo last week, who you
Right.
didn't beat 2 weeks ago and should have beat. So,
Right.
and then Akron also beat Central Michigan. So there's two common opponents right there.
Right.
So,
I think that there are winnable games. It's just like that Bowling Green game. Where the heck are they going to be at? You know, if they haven't won one of these next two games, because they're not beating Ohio. So I don't know. I'm glad that they'll get Saturday off. They can enjoy being students and hopefully not go too crazy before heading out to Akron. But it's just a weird way to prep. Like I'm thinking like when do I write the preview? Like when's the media availability? So but it'll be cool because it'll be on TV. I won't be able to watch next Tuesday, which might be a good thing. But it's action. Like I don't know.
Look, I think it's great. I think
Yeah.
I still think if you're a UMass football fan, you should be excited about this because Maction is wildly popular, man. And that TV deal with ESPN is pretty good. They get really good ratings, all things considered, considering it's MAC schools and it's a Tuesday and Wednesday night. For the month of November, they get some really good ratings during the week. Obviously, the degenerate gambling crowd loves it because it's more games that they can bet on during the week. I agree with you. Northern Illinois, a game that I think at the beginning of the year we all thought probably would be a loss. Thomas Hammock's squad not playing well. They're 2-6. Could that be the game? And then Thanksgiving week, you have Bowling Green coming here. They're 3-5. They haven't been great. So Akron may not be that winnable game that we thought it could be, but Northern Illinois and Bowling Green could be. So it'll be interesting. They have the bye this week. I think your hope is for Coach Harris-Simiak and the staff. They figure some things out, get some guys healthy, and then go to Akron next Tuesday and win a football game. And I think if they can do that, I think it would be huge. Because here's the thing. Imagine if you beat Akron. Now you have a chance to build some real momentum against Northern Illinois and Bowling Green at the end of the season. They do have to go to Ohio, but outside of that, they've got they have a shot here to potentially win one or two games. I'm still keeping the hope here. I know it's easy to make fun of the program. It's easy to talk shit about the program, but you got to have some faith here. I know some UMass folks are moving on to basketball and hockey, but let's stay with this thing through Thanksgiving at least. You know what I mean? Like, and besides, do you really need to go over to basketball right now? They don't play any meaningful games really until after Thanksgiving. So,
and I don't really have high hopes that they're going to be doing anything crazy either. I mean, I think for everyone, it's more about hockey, but I think, like you said, what's going to be interesting is to see the ratings from all the Maction games, because that's going to be such fuel for people to be able to say, like we've talked about, you might love hockey, you might love hoops, but like this Maction game did better than, a UMass NCAA tournament game for hockey.
I want to see what the crowds are going to look like for those two home games. That's what I want to see, because I think in a lot of ways that's going to be a true barometer. Now, they don't get great crowds for these games. I mean, you watch them on TV and, 3/4 of the stadium's empty in some cases. But I feel like because it's a novelty, I feel like at least for this year, UMass may get a good home crowd for both of those games. I mean, let's be honest. What are you going to do on a Tuesday night on campus anyway? I mean, if you have a college football game, you might as well go. Yeah, it'll be cold. You dress up, whatever. But, I don't think we're going to have a snow game like you get with some of these Maction games in the Midwest where it snows and, they're playing this thing on a sheet of ice. I don't think you're going to get that in Amherst this early, but you never know.
Right. I think that the Bowling Green one is going to be rough because students will be gone. It's the holiday week, but the NIU one, I think that like you said,
that'll be a good crowd. I think.
Yeah.
No, I think you bring up a great point. I think that Bowling Green crowd will be weak because it's the holiday week. People are going to be traveling, and I don't think that. I don't think they'll get a great crowd there, but we'll see. Real quick tour around the rest of New England. URI beating in-state rival Bryant, 38-17. Rams, another win here. Another win over an in-state rival. Building some momentum here towards a possible CAA co-share of a CAA title again, or maybe winning it outright if things go their way. And, of course, they're still on the hunt for an at-large playoff berth as well.
Yeah, really important win, and I mean, also important for the state as well. I think just to be able to have this game, not be a total blowout, have a good crowd there too.
Yeah, and don't look now, but the Maine Black Bears have won 4 in a row. They improved to 4-4, impressive 35-14 win over Elon. They were coming off a bye. Jordan Stevens and his staff have done a tremendous job with this program, and that they have a tough schedule down the stretch. You still got to play URI, UNH for the Bryce Cowell Musket, but they have an opportunity here to build some real momentum. And we saw this from them last year. They do host Stony Brook this week. You beat Stony Brook, who's coming into this game at 4-4, so they'll have a shot. You beat Stony Brook. Now, all of a sudden, that URI game takes on a little bit more of a meaning because all of a sudden now Maine is in the CAA title picture. At least they're on the periphery, but they're still in it.
Yeah, and again, we always talk about like those like every game matters in every sport. I hate when people say, "Well, it's the beginning of the season. Oh, it's October basketball or November hockey." Every game matters because when you and I are sitting here, or when anyone's sitting here talking about the end of the season, that game that you might have lost is what screwed you, right? That Stonehill loss is screws you.
It looms large now.
It looms.
Yes.
It looms like it.
Because now you're 5-3. If you had beaten them, you're in a pretty good spot in the CAA. And dare I say, if they finished on a real strong note, you're in the at-large playoff picture, which would be huge for that program.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 4 games left, and if you beat Hampton, that's 5 wins. You beat UNH, that's 6 wins. If you had beaten Stonehill, now you're talking 7-5, and who's to say that one of these other games, that 1-point loss to William and Mary, that's 8-4 is getting you looked at for the FCS
playoff berth.
Right. So it's just that's why every game matters, and it's just when people say, "Well, it's early," no. You have to win your games. You have to treat every game like it's a playoff.
Especially in football, because if you really think about it, in football, one game in football is really the equivalent of 4 in basketball. So it matters a lot. You can lose 1 or 2 games within a 4-game span in college basketball and still make your conference tournament and possibly the NCAA tournament. It's not the way it works in football. Every game has importance. Every game matters, and every game could decide what happens at the end of the season in terms of how you finish. So that's a good point. UNH 34-24 win over William and Mary. Nice win for them. They improved to 5-4 on the season.
Yeah, that's a great win and we talk every season about the consistency of Coach Santos and what he's able to do. And there's a lot of limitations on this squad, especially after losing so many guys last year. And to beat a talented team like William and Mary and score 34 points, when you're and Matt Veza has probably one of his best games honestly of his career. To this point,
he was terrific.
No interceptions, 280 yards, and to run as well as he did. Probably his best game is really like that's the Santos difference. And if you're looking at hiring a guy, it's like that's why I always consider him, because it's like, look what he does with what at that school.
Yeah, no, he does a tremendous job, man. And look, he obviously played at UNH. He's a UNH guy. He's not going anywhere. He's a lifer there. At least in my opinion, anyway. I don't know why you would. He loves it there. His family loves it up there. He's done a terrific job. And that's a program, when you think about the amount of talent that they lost, talk about a program that had to retool a lot in this era of the portal and NIL, that UNH program lost a lot of dudes, a lot of guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball that were key contributors. And look at what you've lost at quarterback the last years. Max Brosmer, Seth Morgan. I mean, those are 2 talented dudes. And, of course, we can't forget Dylan Lobby a couple years ago. Of course, he's with the Las Vegas Raiders now. Logan Tomlinson last year. They've lost a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. And to be 5-4 with the amount of guys that they had to replace going into this season, that just goes to show you how good a job he's doing and how good a job this staff is doing. Going over to the Ivy League, Dartmouth with a 49-3 win over Columbia. Looks like Columbia came back to earth in a big way, huh? Harvard goes on the road, picks up an impressive 35-14 win over Princeton. I mean, the Crimson keep rolling along. The offense is one of the best in the FCS. Jaden Craig and company continuing to put up points. And they can beat you in a lot of different ways. They can beat you by throwing the football, but of late, they've been beating people by establishing that running game.
Yeah, and that's a trap game usually in these last few years, since at least I've been following much more intently when no matter how well Princeton is playing. So just to be able to get a win like that, and do it on the road and still do it in convincing fashion is impressive.
It is. And, of course, they got a big one on Saturday. They host Dartmouth, a game that will have Ivy League championship implications for sure. These two have played some great games in recent years. Our Tom O'Brien will be there for that one. Yale, here they come. I said it to you last week. Did I not? This is the game that could spark the turnaround. I think it's their best win of the season, in my opinion. And I know some people might point to last week against Stonehill, but I think this is their best win of the season. That's a good Penn football team. They beat them handily 35-13. And I think if you're a Yale Bulldogs fan, the big thing is now your passing game is starting to round into form. We knew the running game would be good with Joshua Pitzenberger, but now if Dante Reno is getting comfortable in this offense and that passing game starts becoming a bigger factor, I've seen this story before, Ryan. We know how this plays out. That Harvard-Yale game, some way, somehow, will probably have league implications again. And obviously the stakes are higher now because the winner of that game potentially, assuming they win out and that game ends up being for the league title, the winner of that game gets an automatic FCS playoff berth.
Yeah, and you hit on the head. This was probably Dante Reno's best game, against a quality opponent. 3 touchdowns, no picks. Obviously Pitzenberger does his thing, but he's finding Nico Brown, and it's what makes the Ivy League so fun, right? You just, I kind of always selfishly hope that our guys in New England don't trip up so we can make it when we're in a couple weeks' time. That game means something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Browns come back to earth in a big way. They've lost 2 in a row. They are now 3-3 after a double overtime loss, 30-24 to Cornell. Disappointing loss for James Perry's squad. They had so much momentum after coming from behind to beat Bryant. Last 2 weeks, though, losses to Princeton and Cornell. It's tough, and it doesn't get any easier for them. They hit the road this week to take on Penn, a Penn team that will be looking to bounce back after a tough loss to Yale. As far as the rest of the schedule is concerned, Yale hosts Columbia on Saturday, looking to go to 5-2 on the season. And as I mentioned earlier, big one in the area, Harvard hosting Dartmouth again, as I said earlier as well. Our Tom O'Brien will be there for that one. So stay tuned and make sure you're following along. Obviously, our FCS independents, Merrimack and Sacred Heart, both had the week off. They were on buys. They're back in action this week. In the NEC, you have what's shaping up to be a pretty tight race. Stonehill with a big 22-15 win over Mercyhurst. By the way, don't look now, but Stonehill still has a shot to win the NEC here, which some people would say, no way. But the reality is, man, Eli Gardner and this staff have done a terrific job bouncing back this year after a tough year last year.
Yeah, no matter how long Mercyhurst has been at this level, Stonehill's in a similar scenario. So for them to be able to, lose as tough as they did against Duquesne and, which is, the cream of the crop of the league, and then, bounce back and, like you said, keep themselves in this conversation. That Central Connecticut game on the 8th is going to be, could mean something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Stonehill hosting Robert Morris this week. Long Island beating New Haven last week, and they hit the road this week to take on Central Connecticut State. Stonehill, Central Connecticut State next week. And, of course, you got the Connecticut rivalry game this week. You got New Haven visiting Sacred Heart. Chargers coming into this one at 4-4. Pios coming into this one at 5-3. So, again, a lot of good stuff here as we go along. And finally, of course, Holy Cross, you pick up your first win. Nice win on the road last week at Richmond. Unfortunately, they couldn't follow it up with a win. Tough loss at home against Colgate, 28-29. Colgate coming from behind. You thought after last week's win at Richmond that the Crusaders would build some momentum here. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it. It's been a tough year for Dan Curran's squad, and it continues.
13 unanswered in the fourth quarter. You're up 28, to 16 or whatever the heck it was. It's just because I remember I like checking the scores throughout the day, and I'm like, oh, they're kind of doing what they did last year, and then no, and especially to do so at home is just, these are the losses again where another game within a touchdown, even 3 points for that matter, it's just got to be bone breaking.
Yeah, it is, and look, you kind of knew this was going to happen. You just had too much talent there with the previous coaching staff, with Chesney and his coaches. They did a great job bringing in talent They had a great run there. I thought Dan Kern and his staff did a really nice job last season continuing the run. But you're going to have seasons like this. You're going to have, when you've been good for a period of time, eventually you're going to have a season where you're going to come back to earth. The program is going to come back to earth. And this is that season for Holy Cross. So hopefully they can win a couple of games here down the stretch and build some momentum going into the offseason and next season. You are watching the College Preview Show presented by Yolked. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by my partner, Ryan Barry. I want to remind you that if you're looking for a safe and effective protein product, Yolked is that product for you. At only 47 calories, it tastes like birthday cake. It's delicious and effective. Visit Yolked.com today for more information on this great product. All right, let's take a look at this week's games. And, of course, we're going to start with Boston College. Eagles hosting Notre Dame at home. The Holy War. The Irish are favored in this game by 28.5 points. Stone and I talked about this the other night. Could you see them covering? Here's the thing. I don't know if Notre Dame is that explosive this year. That's a big number. I'm not sure Notre Dame is so explosive this year that they would cover that number. You would think they will, given how bad Boston College has been defensively. Either way, the Eagles aren't winning this game. I think they can be more competitive. But honestly, Ryan, I'm at a point now where I just can't continue to try to talk myself into they'll play them tough, they'll cover, they'll play them tough, they'll cover. But I'm going to do it anyway. They'll play them tough and they'll cover. I like Notre Dame winning, but I think Boston College covers the spread.
I'll go with you winning, and I'll give Notre Dame actually to cover. Just the only difference there, only because I think that they need style points to. I mean, they're in the college football playoff picture as is, but they need to really show as much. And I think BC will keep.
Two losses won't eliminate them because they're Notre Dame. Let's be honest.
Right. So I think that they're going to want to do this against this team, and it's just sad that this is where this game is at. You know, I thought would be a lot bigger.
A lot bigger. And, you know, you go back to the beginning of the season, I mean, tickets for this game were through the roof. I mean, some people, I talked to a couple of people that were looking for tickets for the game, and they were looking at upwards of $1,000 for seats at the 50. So and now all of a sudden, if you go on StubHub or any of the ticket websites, I mean, prices have gone through the floor here. I mean, I know a couple of people that are giving tickets away to this game, which is hard to believe because at the end of August, we were having a different conversation about the importance of this game and what people were willing to pay to go to this game. It's crazy. UMass is on a bye this week, so no preview for them. Of course, UConn is back at home. They host UAB. Huskies are favored by 12.5. UAB comes into this game at 3-4. Can the Jekyll and Hyde Huskies cover? I think they win, and I'm going to say they do cover. I think that they're going to bounce back and play well. They'll get a big win. Should win by 17 to 21 points. I like UConn bouncing back in a big way.
Yeah, I agree. I do think especially what helps UConn is the fact that, you know, UAB kind of had that huge win over ranked Memphis last week. I think this will be their come down game as well, where this will be the ramp up game for UConn.
Yeah. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it will be as well. All right, next up, we're going to go over to the CAA, another strong slate of games in the CAA. We're going to start with Monmouth hitting the road, visiting Bryant. Monmouth coming in at 7-1, although it appears they're going to be without quarterback Derek Robertson, best signal caller in the conference. Bryant coming in at 2-6. Bulldogs are just looking for some hope here. Situation where I think they're going to play well enough to hang in there, but I just don't think they're going to be able to score enough to beat this Monmouth team. I like Monmouth in this one.
Yeah, same. I just, you know, I think with, you know, even if Robertson's out, Brian is really struggling to move the ball. So I'm going to go with Monmouth.
All right. Stony Brook will hit the road to visit Maine. Both teams coming into this one at 4-4. As I mentioned earlier, the Black Bears have won 4 in a row. I think the good times keep rolling. This will be a nice win if they can get it. I think they do get it. I think Maine improves to 5-4, makes it 5 in a row with an impressive win over Stony Brook.
Yeah, and I think what's helpful is that, you know, Stony Brook is kind of that Jekyll and Hyde as well this year. So I'm going to go Maine, but I won't be shocked if Stony Brook wins.
Yeah, UNH and URI both have byes this week. All right, next up. Actually, hold on. I got ahead of myself on my schedule here, my trusty little schedule that I have. All right, next up, we're going to go over to the Ivy League, and we've already talked about some of these games. Brown hits the road to take on Penn. I think a lot of people are going to write Brown off in this game against Penn.
every week, yeah.
It's the stupidest joke on the show. I mean,
It's written in the cards, though.
it is, and I'm the stupidest person on the show. So there you go.
Debatable, yeah.
Can Brown bounce back here? I don't think they do. I'm picking Penn to win this one. I look. I'm going to sound like a negative a-hole when I say this. I am a big fan of that program. I'm a big fan of James Perry. I'm a big fan of the program. Tim Gear, their football communications guy, is literally one of the best people we deal with. He's awesome. I love going down there and covering Brown games, going to spring ball. But I can't do this to myself. I drank the Brown Kool-Aid last year. Technically, brown Kool-Aid would be diarrhea, but
I don't know if you want to drink that, but yeah.
In any event, I bought in last year, and I can't do this to myself this year. I can't buy in again.
Yeah, no. Until they prove it, unless Brown won this week and beat Yale next week, and I'm going to go with Penn as well.
Yeah. Yale hosting Columbia. Columbia's come back to earth in a big way. 1-5 for the Lions. Bulldogs are hitting their stride. They're coming into this one at 4-2. I think they're going to continue to hit their stride. They're going to improve to 5-2. Firm believer they're on another collision course with Harvard for a potential league title and that FCS playoff bid. They'll take care of business this week against Columbia.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm going to go with Yale as well.
I think that passing game is starting to cook now. You mentioned Dante Reno last week. 3 touchdown passes in the win over Penn. I think he keeps it going. And Pitzenberger, I think, again, he is right now. It's going to be interesting to see who wins the Offensive Player of the Year in the Ivy League. I think it's going to come down to him and Jaden Craig. I think that rivalry game down in New Haven could decide that as well. Of course, the big one in the league this weekend, Dartmouth at Harvard. Big Green coming in at 5-1. Crimson, rather, coming in at 6-0. It's going to be a dandy. Now, look, I've learned my lesson through the years. You have to be very cautious when picking against Dartmouth. Sammy McCorkle has done a tremendous job with this program. This is a program that has a talented senior class, specifically on offense. We saw what they could do last week. Dartmouth is more than good enough to go on the road and win this game. If you told me on Saturday night at 7 o'clock that Dartmouth beat Harvard, I would say, yeah, not surprised. I'm going to pick Harvard here, but I think this is going to be a really close game. I think it's a 24-17, 28-24 kind of game.
Agreed. I wouldn't be surprised either, especially with that beatdown last week that they gave. But, this Harvard's won 3 straight against Dartmouth, but they've all been super, super close coin flip games. So I'm going to take the Crimson, but like you said, I wouldn't be shocked if the coin falls the other way.
All right, next up, we're going to take a look at the FCS Independents, and, of course, that's Sacred Heart and Merrimack. Sacred Heart in the Battle of Connecticut hosting New Haven. I think New Haven's had a terrific season under Mark Powell, man. And if you're a Chargers fan, you have to be very pleased with how this season has gone so far. Their first season as a Division I program. Sacred Heart, conversely, coming off a bye, they've had a terrific season as well. Mark Knopfler's Pioneers are currently 5-3. I think this is going to be a terrific game. What I think it's going to come down to is, can the New Haven defense stop Mitchell Summers? If they can't stop him and he runs the way he's run over other people this season, they're going to win this game by 2 scores plus. If they can keep him in check and A.J. Perry and company can spread it around and throw the football, I think this is going to be a shootout and a New Haven win. I'm going Sacred Heart, though. I think the Pioneers have had a terrific year. I think they pick up a win against their in-state rivals.
Yeah, same. I think I would love to be at this game. I think this would be a lot of fun. I hope that I hope it's packed just because they're, being so close to each other. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Pios.
And finally, Merrimack hits Colgate. Warriors coming off a bye. They're going to hopefully brush up on their skills as they take on Colgate.
Another one. It's another one that's always coming.
It's I know it's stupid, but it's getting late. It's almost 10:30. I'm going to go with Merrimack here. Why not? I'm going to go with Coach Giannetti and the boys. I think that they had 2 weeks to prepare for the Fighting Toothbrushes, and I think that they get it done.
Same. I'm going to go with Merrimack here just because I think it was a tough game for Colgate last week against Holy Cross. So and that bye week is really helpful for Merrimack, I think.
All right, we're going to venture over to the NEC, and we've got, of course, we already talked about New Haven and Sacred Heart. Central Connecticut State hosting Long Island coming off a big win over New Haven. The Blue Devils had a bye. They're 5-3 in the driver's seat. It looks like it's going to come down to them and Duquesne more than likely to see who wins the NEC and gets that automatic FCS playoff berth. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils here. I think they get it done and pick up their 6th win of the season. Again, they have quietly played some really good football in the past month. I think that Adam Lechtenberg's squad keeps it going.
Same. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils as well. I think, just having that momentum of, rather having the bye week, is going to help them recharge to keep that momentum going for the rest of the season.
And finally, in the NEC, Robert Morris hits the road. They hit Easton to take on Stonehill. Stonehill in the hunt to potentially win the NEC. Robert Morris coming in with a record of 2-6. I think the moral of the story here is one person can't beat an entire football team. Stonehill should win this one.
Yeah, I think Stonehill's well-rounded. I think they're really starting to find their form. This would be a really disappointing loss for them.
Yeah, and that joke was even dumber than the other two, and you completely ignored it.
I think I definitely missed it then.
I said one individual can't beat an entire football team. Robert Morris is finding out the hard way.
In my head, I was like, it's their running back who's so good.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, in your head, you're thinking, when is this stupid show over? So I think that Stonehill's playing some good football right now. And as I said earlier, in all seriousness, hat tip to Eli Gardner and his staff. He made some changes, new offensive coordinator. They brought in some new kids, and they've done a really good job of putting it all together. And I think, look, you pick this one up. They're 4-5. Again, they're in the mix for the NEC. That's exactly where you want to be if you're a program like Stonehill going into the first weekend of November. They have a chance to have a big bounce-back season. And even if they don't win the NEC, they have a chance to really build some momentum. With a lot of these guys coming back next year, they have a chance to build some momentum going into next season. And finally, of course, we have Holy Cross. The Crusaders are at home. They host Lafayette, the Leopards, coming in at 5-3. Holy Cross, of course, 1-7. It's been, look, we said it earlier. It's been a tough year for Dan Curran's squad. A lot of new faces, a lot of guys that needed to get acclimated. It's shown. They've been competitive, but they just don't have enough to get over the hump and win some of these games. I don't think they win this week either. Lafayette played Stonehill here earlier this year. Stonehill played them tough. It's a good football team. I think they come on the road and they get the win over the Crusaders.
Yeah, same. I think Lafayette's going to take out some of the frustrations that they most certainly had when Holy Cross was on their run. So I think this is going to be about the Leopards.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we got everybody right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we did. All right, final thoughts here before we wrap it up.
It's been an interesting season, like we started the show with, and the news. We've only got a couple weeks left, so people hopefully get out and enjoy some games.
Yeah, it has been an interesting season. I think it's been a tale of two seasons in a way, right? It's been a tough season for Boston College, tough season for UMass, tough season for some of the other programs. But like I said, you also have some programs that have been pleasant surprises. UNH, we talked about them earlier, 5-4. Again, when you consider all the guys that they graduated off of last year's team, for them to be 5-4 at this point in the season, going into a bye week, says a lot about the job that Ricky Santos and his staff have done there. Jordan Stevens and his staff have done a tremendous job getting Maine back on track. URI, for the most part, is who we thought they were. They're pretty good. They're going to be in the CAA and at-large playoff mix. Central Connecticut State took them a while to get going in the NEC, but they're starting to look like who we thought they were going to be. But by and large, it's been a tale of two seasons, and I think a lot of the teams that have disappointed have really disappointed. And I think a lot of the teams that we thought were going to be who we thought they were, not to sound like Dennis Green, have pretty much been that. But certainly I think a lot of people are going to look at this season, and it's going to be judged locally by BC's performance and the kind of sort of downfall of Holy Cross here. But bottom line is there's still some programs that have a lot to play for, specifically UConn, URI, Harvard, Yale, plenty of programs, CCSU, plenty of programs that have a lot to play for here. So there's going to be a lot of meaningful football games coming up here down the stretch. That'll do it for this week's episode of the College Football Preview Show. For Ryan Barry, I'm John Sarianides. We will be back with you next week. Until then, get out